In compliance with Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, entitled Open Public Meeting Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as specified in the Act. Proper notice of this public meeting was provided in the notice of January 7, 2013. Said notice was posted at the entrance of the post office, mailed to the Nutley Sun, the Star Ledger, the North Jersey Herald News, and the Nutley Journal. Mailed to the Nutley Township Clerk, advertised in the Nutley Sun, and posted on our district website. This is an official meeting. In consideration of all here present and in recognition of the importance of the proceedings, it is requested that all cell phones and pages be turned off or silenced for the duration of this meeting. Thank you very much. Pledge allegiance. It's not like the pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mrs. Dan Chapman? Here. Mrs. Flynn? Here. Mr. Klein?
Here.
Mr. Cole?
Here.
Dr. Reed?
Here.
Ms. Russo? Here. Mr. Scalero?
Here.
Mr. Sposato?
Here.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Here. You're just going to wait for this. We're going to have the presentation of the budget at this time. Mrs. Jamins.
Thank you.
If the board members would like to move over where they can see. And, Mrs. Kapuza, could you get the lights, please? Good evening, and welcome to the 2013-2014 Nutley Public Schools budget hearing. This presentation is going to expound upon the preliminary presentation that was given at the February 25th board meeting. At that time, we discussed what made the development of the 13-14 budget different from prior years. Basically, we started our planning very early, in September, early October, having constant ongoing meetings with central administration, blossoming that out to district-wide school building administration, eventually analyzing every single one of our budget categories, line by line. Where are we spending the money? Is that the appropriate funding for those categories? Is there a better way that we could be spending our money so that we can reap more benefits into the classroom? Ongoing questions of that nature kept going through all of these meetings. We then drafted a preliminary budget, continuing out the communication. Eventually, the budget was rolled out to the Finance Committee. It was then presented to the full board at the January retreat. Budget kept getting tweaked as time went along. We eventually received our state aid figures, made the public presentation on February 25th for the first time, submitted the budget to the Essex County office for approval, and the budget was advertised in the March 21st Nutley Sun. The overarching theme throughout the budget development was sustainability. We needed a sustainable fiscal path that we could continue to grow from the current year's budget into next year and continuing down the road. We weren't planning just for 2013-14, but we're planning for that and beyond. And now I'm going to turn this part of the presentation over to the superintendent to get through the next few slides.
Again, as we build our budget, as we do anything in the district now over the past 8 or 9 months, our sole focus has been our strategic plan. The second half of last year, driven by the vision of this board, We got over 50 stakeholders together for about a 5 to 6 month period to put together a strategic plan. Everything that we're doing now is in line with that vision. And we always ask ourselves, almost in every meeting at this point, is what we're doing toward that strategic plan. Now, there's been a central focus, which is the student. We're trying to make sure that every decision that we make is positively impacting our students. Our strategic plan has 6 different action teams, all of which are working on things such as community involvement, our curriculum, increasing focus on competencies and those core skills that students need to be successful, character development, K-12, and creating both that common vision and that common language that we've been talking about since I arrived. In order to be successful, you're going to see a program review tonight from Mr. Kandari, which is coming out of our strategic plan, something that we plan on doing now in every content area over a 5-year cycle so that we're always at the cutting edge, providing everything we can in classrooms for our students. All those things have rolled out in the strategic plan, and all those things, as you're going to see, need funding. So if we're going to make our classes the best they possibly can be, and afford our students every possible opportunity, we have to craft a budget that allows us to do that. And that has really been our singular focus. With that in mind, just as a recap, last year we did a great deal of hard work as a board and as an administration to ensure that we started to put our resources towards students and their learning. We radically increased the budget for instructional resources. Coming in with some of the feedback I got from board members, teachers, parents, students, was that our resources in the classroom have not been updated in far too long a period of time. And part of that is difficult when you haven't built a budget that allows the Board of Education, the teachers, the administration to do that. So we shifted a great deal of funding toward instructional resources. The next step, though, which we made a huge commitment, is professional development. Shifting resources within our budget so that we could also afford teachers the opportunity to continue their learning to make sure that came back into the classroom. We made a number of technological enhancements in the district. The first was the student information system. Again, involved a great deal of people, parents, administrators, teachers. It took a number of months led by our Director of Instructional Technology to select that new student information system, which has really brought the district together and given meaningful information to our staff members as they need it in their classrooms, at home, really allow us to clean up our data, to make sure we have the appropriate data, but also the right people have it at the right time. Performance Matters, we've had a huge push to assess our students. We're not talking about testing, we're talking about assessment, knowing how our students are doing when it comes to mastering the key pieces of each curricular area. And this allows us to share that information and to pull patterns out, to make instructional decisions moving forward based on the current performance of our students. We increased our central office capacity by bringing tools like ASAP, cut out a lot of wasteful paperwork, time-consuming paperwork. It allows us to generate reports and answer questions where they had never been asked before, to make sure that we have our staff in the right places and that we're maximizing, again, for the budget, where we put our resources when it comes to professionals working with students. Again, in line with what the state has been pushing, the new Teach NJ and Achieve NJ, but actually ahead of that curve, as we've been talking about, we brought in a number of evaluation tools in professional development, both for our faculty, also our administrators. Making sure that we continue those investments in professional development and those tools are critical if we're going to keep moving forward. We radically grew the technology budget. We had a very, very small technology budget in the existing year. We radically enhanced that to try and make sure we were pushing forward both our network and server capacities, but as well as our infrastructure and the tools that we're putting in the hands of kids. We have a number of pilot programs going on, and those are all supported by a budget that's carefully crafted to do exactly that. We made a huge investment in our capital reserve, which had been left too long without any kind of investment. And it's not just rainy day, but how do we make sure on a regular basis we're maintaining these wonderful facilities so that our staff and our students can come to a place where they're comfortable, they're safe, and it's conducive to learning. In line with that, we've also made investments in the current year in maintenance, ongoing maintenance every year, to make sure that we don't get hit with a huge problem because we took care of it when it was a small issue. So all of these things were in the existing budget. Our challenge was to make sure it wasn't a one and done, that we were able to make sure these were recurring themes across our budget so that we could continue to grow. It wasn't simply this year and then we went in some other direction. So part of the hard work of the board and business administrator and our central office staff was to ensure that these things lasted in the existing budget. Some of our new investments. This first slide speaks to, and there's a lot of talk, we worked very hard to be responsible when we had a budget surplus. which most districts, if they're lucky, do to some extent. That surplus gets incorporated into a future year's budget, but it is not recurring. And so what ends up happening with that money is that you need to spend it on one-time investments. We've chosen to put almost all of it into the classroom if possible, to students learning, if you will. Instructional resources, as I said, our resources in the classroom have been without refresh for a while. We took advantage of this opportunity, being responsible last year, so that we can make additional purchases quickly rather than waiting. Every day that we went by using outdated materials was a hindrance to our students. And so between technological enhancements as well as new series, we are piloting new math series, multiple math series as we speak. We're also working on a new language arts program, exploring that avenue, making sure that when we open in September, those classrooms will be chock full of resources so our teachers have what they need to make sure every student is learning as he or she should. We found in the past, before Mrs. Yeamans arrived, we've been piecing together our athletic budget and kind of trying to find money as the year went on, and we don't want to work that way. We want to make sure before the year opens, we responsibly place the money that's necessary to run our current level of programs, and so we've made more investments there. And based on that, we took advantage of our surplus again to kind of bump up. In our regular recurring budget now, we are making an investment in capital reserve. But because of the money, we took the opportunity to jump about 4 or 5 years ahead of our normal investment in one fell swoop, so that we could be responsibly prepared for those rainy days we don't know what they may be when they come in the future. We also now, in our existing budget, have added staffing in 2 critical areas to begin with. The first is special services. We're talking about some changes we're making tonight, but within the department we recognize that for too long we've been accepting retirements and not filling positions, and the service to our students goes down. We value all the different subpopulations in the district, none more than the other, and we certainly value special services, but we have to put our money where it's needed. For too long, we've kind of let that department shrink while the needs of the students and the number of students have grown. We don't want to do that any longer. The same is true of building and grounds. Supporting Mr. Nicolette and his great team, we have to have the manpower. And unfortunately, the buildings suffer, and therefore the learning environment suffers when we don't. So we make sure we put specific dollars in both of those areas. And the board was very clear they wanted to make sure we were working in those specific areas because they knew that this had been going on for some time and we wanted to correct the issue.
So we look at the revenues, and we're comparing the current year's revenues with what we have budgeted for next year. As Mr. Lazovic pointed out, the excess surplus becomes what is known as the fund balance in the budget. So that's the first line of revenue, and you can see the significant increase from 12-13 to 13-14 of $1.4 million, which we have allocated to those one-time expenditures. The tax levy increase of 2%. Our tuition revenue from any students that we can receive from another district, wherever we have space available. The same with transportation that we share with other districts. Interest, miscellaneous revenue, the increase there is due to our abilities to increase our rental income. State aid is basically flat from 2012 to 2013. There's that wonderful dollar. The extraordinary aid, that's a funding source that is unpredictable from year to year. The parameters for extraordinary aid change greatly from year to year. And you file the applications in the spring and receive the money the following school year. So when that money is received, that is one of the allowable additions to a budget that the board can then appropriate as needed throughout the 13-14 school year. So that is currently an unknown. And then the last number is the adjustment for prior year encumbrances. Those are the expenditures that were all encumbered from 11-12 for goods and services that we had not received yet. So they roll over into the current year's budget along with the revenue that was set aside. So the overall increase in revenues is $1.9 million. Now, if we look at the expenditures, these are very broad categories throughout the budget, but you can see the increases and decreases. Again, they correspond to a lot of the things Mr. Lazovic has pointed out this evening. Regular instruction incorporates those instructional resources and our technology investment, as well as negotiated salary increases. Special ed instruction incorporates some of those additional positions that Mr. Lazovic spoke about. And some of the other highlighted areas in athletics, the increase in the supplies for the athletics department, as well as, it's been a goal of the board, the superintendent, and myself to make sure that we are aligning our budget to the expenditure categories where the money is actually falling. So we did a lot of shifting in this year's school budget, and this is one of the areas that needed a little bit further adjusting in terms of any time that the buildings and grounds and custodial departments do work that is associated with athletic events. We actually have lines within the athletic budget for all of that overtime and extra work that they do. So we're trying to move some of that into where it belongs, again, to have everything aligned more effectively, so that when we're looking at what the actual expenditures are for the athletic department, we are looking at a true number. The co-ed extracurricular, a lot of that was put into some additional clubs that were put into the budget for this year and carrying through next year, as well as some additional funding for extra work that the teachers are committed to doing and some of the programs that are being run throughout the year. Student Services incorporates media, guidance, some of your child study team, everything that supports this instructional programming. So again, that increase on that line is due to some of the staffing increases for the special services department, as well as negotiated increases. We also have increases throughout the budget, slight increases for supplies in various departments. Professional development, just a little bit more resource that we were able to get into the budget to continue maintaining that growth. The general administration has a reduction of $300,000, and that was basically due to the fact that in the current year's budget, we had the OFAC fine of $326,000. That's a one-time expenditure. It does not need to be incorporated into next year's budget. The plant and operations incorporates the additional FTE as well as the additional resources that we are putting towards maintenance, repairs, and supplies. And then your increase for pupil transportation, for basically a lot of that is going to vehicle maintenance and the increased cost of gasoline. But as our fleet gets older, our maintenance costs start to go up a little bit, so we have to make sure we have enough funding for that. And then the benefits line actually has a reduction on the employee benefits of about $134,000, and that's the increase in premiums is in that figure, but we also, some of that is being offset by the increase in employee contributions. And then capital outlay incorporates the additional capital reserve funding of $425,000 and the increase from the state for the SDA assessment charge. That was the money that the state gave for various projects, referendum projects from 2004, 2005. So they have passed on the debt service to school districts, and that number was increased for next year. So again, the overall increase is the $1.9 million, which matches the revenue side to show that the budget is balanced. This evening, this is the resolution that is on the agenda for the board to pass. The top portion is the actual overall cost in the general fund budget of $59 million, special revenue fund of $1.2 million, debt service fund of $3.6 for a total of $64 million. Of that, the general fund tax levy is $50 million, and the debt service tax levy is $2.8 for a total of $52.9 million in tax levy. The general fund tax levy, again, is the 2% increase. The debt service tax levy, we received a slight reduction in our debt service aid, but our debt service repayment has gone down. So the taxpayers are realizing a savings of $66,000 or 2.29% in the debt service tax levy. And that reduction was due to the bond refinancing that the board approved last fall. So this budget is reflecting an increase on the average assessed home of $57.19. And that concludes the budget presentation.
Just take a little time for the folks to sit down, okay? Before we take any questions from the audience, our board members have any specific questions on the budget?
What constitutes community service, $8,000?
Karen? Community service, the $8,000 tab that you see there, what falls into that category?
We do some joint ventures with the town in terms of putting up the holiday display in Noble. And so any of those types of events, or last year we also charged the additional funds that we needed to cover the buildings during the election. So it's those two things. Yeah.
Any other board members have any specific questions on the budget? And before we go to the public, I do want to thank Karen and the staff, Mr. Lazovic, certainly our committee that worked very hard on this, Jim Cookter, Vicki Flynn, and Ryan Klein. I appreciate the time and energy you put into it, and I think this is probably one of the years that, in my opinion, the budget has been a lot clearer, more concise than I've seen in quite a while. But I think we're going to take questions from the audience first, right? Okay. Glenn, you can read this here? No? Okay. I'm going to read this, then we'll take questions from the audience. We now come to the portion of our meeting where we allow members of the public to address the board. In this session, we allow questions or comments on only the resolutions addressed in tonight's agenda, which are presented at this time. Our board regulation 601 allows 20 minutes for these communications. Each person shall be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask you to try to stay within this requirement. Speakers may speak more than once, only after all others wishing to speak on a topic have been heard. All statements will be directed to me as the chairperson. No one may address board members individually. Please be reminded if your statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, or redundant, your participation may be terminated. Please remember to always state your name each and every time you address the board. The first person can come forward, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Alan Thomas, 108 McKinley Street. Just having been able to examine this starting this morning when it got put online, a couple things just struck me immediately, Mr. President. One was the, see on page 7 of what was handed out here, was a legal reserve. Which has an estimated balance for June 30th, 2013 of over 1.6 million, and then being zeroed out for the next budget. And I'm just wondering, why do we have such a reserve, and why is it being zeroed out?
That is the budgeted excess surplus, which is the fund balance that I showed in the revenue line, revenue side of the budget. So we start off with that money and we're allocating it into the 13-14 budget, so therefore there will be zero at the end.
Thank you, Mr. James. The next question would be, we have 1.64 million, yet when we saw the slides on the one-time expenditures, I don't think it totaled to 1.6 million. If I'm wrong, I saw 425,000 to the capital reserve, I saw
We have
40,000 to athletics and something for instruction, but it didn't add up to 1.6.
It's not actually 1.6 because the surplus, you have to remember, is the difference between this year's surplus versus last year's surplus. So it's actually about 1.4. We have a little over $200,000 in last year's surplus. We have almost $500,000 going to instructional resources. We had another 5 for the capital outlay, which is an investment into our reserve. The final 5 is that every year we try and make sure that every district we budget a certain percentage to next year's excess surplus. And we try to regulate that. We don't want these huge spikes. That remaining 500,000 approximately is planned to hold in case of that rainy day. That's what, so if you do the math there, I know that wasn't on the slide, but that's the remaining 1/3, if you think.
It makes sense to me. Thank you, Mr. Lyle.
Sure.
Any other questions on the budget? If not, Mr. Cookton?
Yes, Mr. President, I move resolution number 1, approval of the 2013-2014 budget, and resolution number 2, 2013-2014 budget, school district travel maximum as presented.
Roll call, Mr. Cruz.
Can I have some discussion?
I'm sorry.
I'd just like to make a comment and commend the business administrator, the superintendent, and the staff. I think that this year, the process, there's a couple of things I would highlight. One is the process that was used, looking at priorities and the analysis and taking into account the needs of the district to move the district forward with respect to our strategic plan. I think that is commendable for everybody involved in the staff. And I'd like to congratulate the superintendent and business administrator for the analysis they've done and the digging into the budget. They know this budget better than anybody in the township. I think I can comfortably make that statement. So, thank you.
I believe you're right. And I think moving forward next year, I know you have 3 people on your committee. I think we should try to fit an additional board member in at every one of your budget hearing meetings that you have, so all the board members can maybe pick up some slack once in a while that aren't as informed as the 3 members on that committee.
Good suggestion.
Anything else? Now, the roll call?
Mrs. Stanchek Martin? Yes. Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Cookman?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Scalera?
Yes.
Mr. Spezzano?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes. At this time, we're going to go into closed executive session, correct? Okay. Whereas the Board of Education will be discussing matters exempt from public discussion pursuant to NJSA 10-4-12, now therefore be resolved, the Board of Education recessed to close executive session at this time to discuss personnel. Be it further resolved that the results of this discussion will be made public by inclusion on the agenda or of a subsequent meeting of the Board of Education, or when the reason for discussing such matters in closed session no longer exists.
Second.
We need a roll call.
So in favor?
Aye.
We should not be too long, folks. We should be 20 minutes long. All right, folks, I need a motion to go back.
Make a motion to go back into open?
Second.
Roll call, Mrs.
Mrs. Stanchek Martin?
Here.
Ms. Flynn?
Here.
Mr. Klein?
Here.
Mr. Cookman?
Here.
Dr. Reed?
Here.
Ms. Russo?
Here.
Mr. Scalera?
Here.
Mr. Spezzano?
Here.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Here. Okay. I need the approval of the minutes. Mr. Cookman,
Make a motion to approve the minutes as distributed?
all in favor? Aye. Correspondence?
None.
None? Superintendent's report?
Thank you, Mr. Kaczynski. I know it's only been 2 short weeks, but again, a lot's been going on. Before I start my superintendent's report, I do have to make a public apology. There are always a lot of things that go on during the day, and for a school district the size we are, there are always multiple pieces. I do apologize that we scheduled our budget hearing on the first night of Passover. I know a number of members of our community could not be here tonight. We're trying to make amends for that. As well, just to show how much we weren't looking, after my report, I have to excuse myself. So I can attend Seder. And I do apologize for not doing the rest of the meeting. The board members were aware. And again, we're making sure we're looking at as many things as we build these calendars this far in advance, that way we can kind of take this into consideration. But I want to let everyone know that when I finished, I didn't want them to think I kind of disappeared somehow, and that's where I went. As far as the superintendent's report, beginning with facilities, first of all, at the high school this past Friday, we began those lighting upgrades that we've been talking about, going green, working with local organizations. It's not costing the district, it's save the district. Mr. Nicolette has worked with Mr. Pyro and Mr. Williams to make sure the facilities were available, and those upgrades have begun. They're going to continue over the next couple of weeks. Radcliffe School, thanks to Mr. Kaczynski, we had Mr. Scalera as well, interviewers involved in working with the township and the county. And their efforts have come up with a plan based on what recently happened this past summer. Again, to Radcliffe School is on a high-traffic road, and we want to take steps to ensure safety for our students and our staff. There is a plan. That plan was presented to the residents of Radcliffe last week. We were present at that meeting with Commissioner Scarpelli and the mayor. Based on that presentation now to the board members, we feel this is a plan that will, in fact, help maintain safety at Radcliffe School. So our next job is to set up, through Mr. Carney and the PTO, a meeting with the parents of students at Radcliffe School so we can present that before we make any final decisions moving forward. Once that's done and we get final approval, again, it's technically not the Board of Education's responsibility because the land that we're talking about is town land. And so that's where Commissioner Scarpelli and the mayor have been playing an active role in helping with the resources as well as the county. And if things move forward the way we're hoping, we're going to wait until after testing is over because we don't want to disturb Radcliffe School, and testing takes a good deal of time. So we're really talking about mid to late June, if not this summer, to really get the work done. But again, our goal is to make sure that when we come back in September, we've ensured the safety even one step further of those students at Radcliffe School. Washington School, we had some parents come to the microphone a number of meetings ago. Mr. Kaczynski and I were at Washington School the very next morning. We've been back a few times, both for drop-off and for pickup. We do recognize there is an issue. We've been working with the town and with the administration of Washington School, as well as with Mr. Nicolette, to determine the best possible plan to make drop-off, especially as seamless and as safe as possible. That's involved conversations with our association and our building administration to make sure we can have staffing during those times. And eventually, as we develop a plan, working with the PTO, to make sure that it makes sense, we have their input, and that when we actually roll out whatever the final result is, everyone's on the same page so that we have an effective rollout of a new plan so we're not end up where we started. I do want to take a second, thanking the Nutley Sun as well, a complicated issue. We've been talking about space in our buildings, and I've been told a number of things that are going around. And what I want to make clear, which I believe the Sun really did, we haven't made any decisions. This Board of Education is examining every possible solution to the fact that we have a shortage of space. And the problem is complicated. It's not just that we're out of classrooms, but a lot of our buildings, with the character they have, were built during a time when schools did not have as part of their daily functioning a number of the things that we have today. And because of that, we don't have the space for those things to take place appropriately, and it's affecting the way we service our students. We have to handle that. That's really impacting all 7 of our buildings. And so we've talked about a number of potential solutions to pieces of the problem, one of which has gotten a lot of conversation across the town, is the creation of a true middle school. I know again that it says middle school in the front of the building, but a true middle school model, a minimum of 3 years as a grade span, if not 4. It's an instructional model, one that which we're exploring with our configuration committee as part of our strategic plan, but we are exploring. No decisions are being made in back rooms. This board has been very upfront that we value communicators. We want everyone's input. So as we get plans, we put them in front of the board and then the public. We're trying to figure out the best possible solution. The one thing that was made clear is that we do have a space issue. And we want to address it because at the end of the day, it affects our staff's ability to service each individual student. And so I wanted the public again to know that this is where we are in the process. We're exploring making sure we make the right decision before we take a step forward. Related to space issues, I want to give the board an update. As of today, our kindergarten registration was 182. We still do have more appointments, and 182, to give some perspective, is pretty much right where we were this time last year. And we know what happened as we went through the summer. I mean, some people have asked us to be better communicators in planning and the rest. We had to make facility shifts over the summer and right up to the day before September when we opened. And people want us to give out kind of a information that we're doing this, to give a heads up, if you will. We don't know until the numbers come in. And so we have to sometimes react to the fluctuating numbers, but what we try and do is communicate as we know, and we're going to keep trying to live up to that. But again, 182 about where we were. Outside of the district, a number of events happened. As part of our superintendent's roundtable through Seton Hall, I attended a meeting with Commissioner of Education a week and a half ago, talking to us about Teach NJ and Achieve NJ, updating us on the proposed legislation that the Department of Education has given to the legislature, changing the process of teacher and principal evaluation. To use his words, it was much more specific than he initially intended, but as they went down that road, they felt they were doing good work. And he kind of guided us a little bit through the why of certain specific things. The next part of the meeting got to sit with a number of superintendents throughout the state to try and figure out how different districts are wrestling with this issue and waiting to see what's happening. Again, happy to report what we've been talking about. From those conversations, we're in year 2, where some have yet to start. So I feel that our teachers, our administrators have a leg up. We've had a lot more experience with this, and I feel as these changes go through, we'll be best prepared. We have, as required by code, our district evaluation advisory committee. Includes board members, parents, central office, building, district administration, as well as teachers and members of both associations that are impacted, administrator and teacher. We're meeting on April 8th as a committee to, number 1, go through the proposed legislation, number 2, compare that legislation to what we're already doing in district, and number 3, make specific recommendations about moving forward so that we continue that upward curve with learning our framework and evaluating people for growth first, learning second, and certainly accountability third. We'll have more to report out after we sit down, but one of the things we've been trying to do is work collaboratively. Administrators sitting next to teachers, sitting next to parents and board members, as well as central office, to make sure we're making difficult decisions to keep what might be new but valuable, but also live up to the other pieces we may not completely understand yet. One of the things we have been doing, actually in communication with today, the assistant commissioner, both for evaluation of teachers and for student assessment, I was in contact with today. They're very good at getting us back. So as we get questions from the board or wherever, I directly communicate with the people who are moving these initiatives, and we can get information back to help us kind of frame our plan. School performance reports. I just want to make a brief statement about this. The New Jersey Department of Education is releasing a new version of what has come to be known as the school report card. It's an assessment of each individual school in the state of New Jersey. It has taken a massive effort to overhaul the format and give new information in a different way. What I want to assure the community is that one of the things, their ultimate goal for doing this is not so you compare school to school. Their ultimate goal, which they stated in writing, was to generate meaningful conversations about student achievement and how the efforts of stakeholders are influencing student achievement. I can tell you already from what we've done in district with the sample reports, it's doing that. That said, the data is incredibly complicated. There are multiple data points compared in a variety of ways, and if we're not careful, we can misunderstand or misinterpret, and that's what we want to avoid, at least here in Nutley. Because of that, we'll be having a few evening meetings, open houses, if you will, for community member stakeholders. We're going to present the format, take questions, answer those questions if we can right there, if not, get back to the website. But I wanted people, they're looking to release them this week. We thought today, but I didn't see anything published. I want to make sure that our first reaction is always a question, not, oh my goodness, or this is fantastic, because we really have to understand what's being said in these reports before we start to make a conscious judgment of whether the information is good, bad, or otherwise. So we want to handle that responsibly. This past Friday, I continued my engagement with the Panasonic Group. We were in Hillsborough, and just bouncing off of the school performance reports, it's so interesting. Hillsborough is extremely different in demographics and makeup and socioeconomic status and performance than Nutley is, and yet when we talked with the superintendent who made his presentation before we invaded his schools, they're dealing with the exact same issues. And so we became a very key part of the conversation because of what our staff, what this board, what our stakeholders have helped push over that last year and a half. We really have moved ahead, and we're able to answer a lot of questions in that respect. It was good to see a number of other superintendents throughout the state wrestling with the same issues. Last thing, as far as outside of districts, I was honored to participate on the selection committee of the JCs, and I wanted to just acknowledge a number of people. I think the Board of Education did very well this year. First off, Joe Capello is our Educator of the Year. Joe currently serves not only as a member of the middle school staff, but he's our HIV coordinator, has done a great deal of work on keeping us at the forefront, so congratulations to Mr. Capello. Teresa Rufo is a retired teacher, and a number of her family members are still teaching in the district, gave her entire career, and just well-deserved. Mr. Phil Nicolette, for public safety, again, he's invaluable to me, surviving as a superintendent as much as Mrs. Jamins or Ms. Milani, but it was nice to see him honor his welfare work in the town. And I haven't heard of this person, but apparently Ms. Vicki Flynn was also honored as outstanding young woman in town. So congratulations to all those people, and just to remind everyone, the JC's dinner will be Thursday, April 4th. And if you look both on our website or on theirs, you can find information for attending the dinner. Switching to academics, which is why we're here. A couple upcoming events to announce. Washington School Tricky Trace tomorrow night. Our all elementary concert is March 27th. Our grade 6 parent information night, a critical night for grade 6 parents coming to the middle school, is going to be scheduled for April 1st with Mr. Corbett. And we talk about community engagement, parental engagement. This is one of those key pieces that we've been pushing. And our World Language National Honor Society, April 2nd, as we induct a new cohort of students into that prestigious society. So I want to thank Mr. Ackerman for leading our career advisory committee. We had a meeting of multiple stakeholders last Wednesday in the high school. The career advisory committee is really community engagement where local business owners and stakeholders volunteer their time, their efforts to take in our students, so our students can get experience, real-world experience before they even leave high school in specific areas, everything from medicine to TV and radio, to commissions and politics, so they can see what they might want to study or do moving forward. It's all donating of their time, of their resources, and it was a great lunch to kind of reconfirm what had happened this year and to plan for next year, so thanks to Mr. Ackerman. Two very quick updates. Both the math pilot continues to move forward. I think at this point our trainings are now done. Our teachers are using the resources, collecting information so that we can have a meaningful conversation in May about what materials would best suit our students moving forward. We also have continuation of our language arts model training program. Miss, what's Shelley's last name? Klein. Miss Klein has been in classrooms now performing model lessons for teachers, working with them with our actual students. We've gotten a great deal of positive feedback. Our biggest issue, just connect to the budget, which thank you for just passing, we have to make sure that come September, our classrooms, especially at the K-8 level, have the resources necessary to engage kids on their independent levels. Otherwise, all the professional development will be wonderful, but they're not going to be able to implement it for the students. So that's a big piece. I talked about our DEAC meeting. The C-Perch program. Commend Mr. Banya and his staff, but MITC grants. They have a C-Perch program where students compete in a contest, they build a submersible, you then have to race that submersible. And it was the first time our students were doing this. We get to the science fair a little bit later, you actually got a chance to test it out if you were there. They brought one of the models there. While we were testing that though, our students were competing at New York City College for the regional C-Perch competition. And I'm happy to announce that our team, first year in, took first place.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Dr. Nummel and his students. They did an excellent job. I'm looking if they can take first place this year. I can't wait to see what happens next year. We want to keep moving forward. From Mr. Vanny and Mr. Odell, we have teachers that, again, trying to get Nutley out there and make sure we're part of the process, working with both, under the Department of Education, both the science and the social studies curriculum efforts to make sure we're part of setting standards and devising assessments that are going to be used to judge students across the state. I think it's key that we get our best people involved in that because they're going to make the process and the result better. But it's also important that our staff members are part of the process. They can bring that information back to us in a real-time way so that we're making decisions and preparing our staff and our students long before these things roll out officially. So thank you for their work. Mr. Banya as well, science. We talked about pilots, we talked about the budget. K-3, we're receiving training this week for our science pilot. Back to the academic committee. New materials are coming in. We've been talking about this for a while. We want to allow kids to get dirty. What I mean by that is roll up their sleeves and really get excited about science. We want them to do that about everything. This is Mr. Bain's handling his specific area. They're going to be piloting materials this week and then moving through the rest of the year. Our goal to buy at least for those grade levels across the district so we can start building this and follow kids as we move up. Faculty and staffing, switching topics. Our non-tenured / staffing meetings are tomorrow. Just to update the board again, we're going through every single non-tenured member of the district using a new evaluation system to see where we are, making decisions about continuing service, but also growth plans for individual people, which is really key. Again, I go back to growth. We also now talk about staffing based on the numbers. What's necessary, what programs we want to support, and how we maximize our staff for the good of the students. I also want to take a second on the faculty and staffing to announce that I'm looking forward to appointing tonight an interim director of special services before Mr. Molino leaves. Dr. Teresa Schifferhouse is here with us. We had a fairly intense and rapid process for this. We had over 20 people apply for the interim position. I'm extremely confident that she's going to come in and help us over the next 3 months, get us situated and set up as we look for a full-time director of special services. Her experience, variety of districts. She has, just talking to her, a love of special services and has come in order to help districts do exactly what we're doing, trying to get a baseline and making recommendations. So we're looking forward to having her with us over the next 3 months. Final piece was Ms. Flynn. Mr. Klein and I attended with Mr. Molino the NAPSAC CPAC meeting recently. We got some really good feedback from parents of students with special needs. It's something I look forward to attending with Dr. Schifferhouse and getting the feedback as well. But again, we also shared what the district is doing so that they are clear that their needs and concerns are our needs and concerns, and that we're taking them as a top priority and making sure that all of our students, including their specific subpopulation, are being serviced. I want to recognize Christina Allegra. She's an Nutley High School student, senior. She's been recognized by College Board and the NHRP as a 2012-2013 scholar for the National Hispanic Recognition Program. This is, again, based off of PSAT performance. We talked about, and we will talk a lot more about PSAT performance when we talk about these performance reports. They are a critical piece, but once again, what we're going to do as a district to move this forward, but congratulations to her with such high performance. Mr. Kaczynski, Mr. Williams, Mr. Pyro, Mr. Scalera, and I attended the hockey breakfast as one example of the great things going on within the athletic program. It was a phenomenal event at the Fiesta in Woodridge. That's close. And
They have a setting.
just there you go. Just to see the parents and the kids getting together and celebrating what was truly a record-breaking season for us. And we talked about how this is building not just in hockey, but our athletic program. We're always looking about moving forward. So congratulations to them. And we were just very excited about kicking off the spring season of athletic competition. Spring Garden, I do have to highlight the school drama club production. Miss Walk and the drama club presented a version of Aladdin and his wonderful magical lamp last Thursday and Friday. It was terrific. I didn't know what I was walking into. Seeing the kids, I only got to see a couple of rehearsals. I unfortunately was unable to make the performance. I know Ms. Malani was able to see it. Trying to be everywhere, do everything. But again, congratulations to her and to the students. It really was an exceptional endeavor for the students. Speaking of exceptional endeavors, and I'm almost there. Lincoln School offered a literacy night on Tuesday the 12th. And going to that night, there were a number of things. When I finally got there, I need to thank Ms. Restell and all of her faculty and staff for putting together what I think is one of the best experiences that I've had since I've been here. They were engaging parents with reading strategies. They were engaging kids with reading. And obviously the highlight for me at our Star Lab, which we need to use more prevalently, going into that dome with the kids, being pitch black, and having Miss Algieri walk us through the inside of the globe and connect it to things that the kids had been reading. Having them ask questions and being able to physically move the globe around and kind of live inside it was a great experience. We need to use that as a regular part of our curriculum. So thank you to all of them. Speaking of great experiences, Saturday after the hockey breakfast, have to thank the Academic Booster Club, certainly Mrs. Danchek Martin, who I understand is starting to recover from all of the efforts. I believe the only hitch was being locked out of the high school Friday, right after that was smooth sailing. It was an incredible experience getting to, and again, everyone from Mr. Kandari and other administrators from across the district, Mr. Stell, the elementary level, Ms. Egan, Mr. Williams, Mr. Banya, as well as almost every board member, to get to sit, and I spent most of my time, which was nice, talking to students, and to listen to them talk about their learning, what they're passionate about, what they're excited about. That's what science and that's what instruction needs to be all the time. And it was just a great afternoon. Again, during that afternoon, they had the sea perch submersible out there. I'm still waiting for my t-shirt. We had a competition, hundreds of people. It was interesting to see everyone from young kids to our administrators trying to manipulate this thing through the water. So again, congratulations and thank you again, the Academic Booster Club. I'm looking forward to next year's History Fair. Last but not least, before I turn it back over to Mr. Kaczynski, speaking of wonderful events, I know we were just announced again, Mr. Gerard, I'm not still in front, I thought it was out there already, but we were announced as one of the 2013 Best Communities for Music Education. So congratulations to Mr. In line with that, Mr. Kandari will be presenting his program review today to talk about taking it a whole other step forward. We never rest. Last two things just to comment on again, because I know they've been out there, but with the budget, we've made decisions in the past. I mentioned it last board meeting, but again, our rotation will be changing again from what it is this year to a more permanent, if you will, solution so that each building has one specific art teacher that it works with depending on the grade span. What we talked about again is that we have to maximize our resources. When it comes to art teachers at the elementary level, we have 4 grade levels. Based on our master schedule, we can only offer so much art because we have to offer everything else. And with our current staffing of 4 teachers, we have the equivalent of 27 free periods that we can't even use the art teachers for art instruction. A full-time teacher teaches 34, which means based on the reality and the configuration of the district, we actually have almost the value of 1 full teacher through the course of a given week not teaching. Because of that, again, what we've tried to stress is that we're not hiring any art teacher. What we are doing is reconfiguring where the art teachers are set so we have more consistency in program, we can spend more time with the building and a specific population of kids to provide the kind of art program that we're looking for. This year, we had a lot of positives come out with the art. First and foremost is we've had, for the most part, 4.5 to 5 different art programs. Depending where a student went, they were exposed to completely different things. But this year, through the work of the curriculum, and by bringing a regular art meeting into practice every month, working with Mr. Ackerman, a lot more consistency and almost teamwork between the art teachers so that we feel about putting them back into schools, we're going to achieve that more consistent art program as we move forward. They all come to this building at the end, so we want to make sure, not exactly the same, but there are key pieces that are consistent across the district. The other is gifted and talented. As we shift the model, we continue to work with gifted and talented. That being said, I've explained what we want as a full model. For gifted and talented, as mentioned before, we'll be having, now that the budget season is through, we talked about late April, early May, having an evening for parents, but also any community stakeholders who want to come out and hear about what we're doing with gifted and talented. There will certainly be significant shifts between this year and next year. Again, our goal is to make sure that every student's being pushed as far as he or she can go every second of the day. And when we offer a program once a week for 40 minutes, it equates to about 6 to 8% of their weekly schedule. What happens the other 92 to 94% of the day? We want to make sure all of our students are being pushed. So whether we're talking about special eds, I kicked it off with, we're gifted and talented and everyone in between. We want to make sure that all of our students are receiving what we call rigorous instruction. And with that,
Thank you, Mr. Leslie. Mr. Kandari, you are up. Since Mr. Leslie, you used up most of your time, you have about that.
I'm going to go quick. He also said since he was leaving that we were just going to approve it all anyway, so we
Yes,
just...
yeah.
Okay. I don't think I need a microphone, do I?
No.
No. You see that? Okay. So I will try to keep this pretty concise. This is the report that I'm going to give tonight is a result of our committee on curriculum committee, and we're working with Dr. Reed and Joe Materia and a parent group and also input from students. We came up with the way that each curricular area would be reviewed, and while we were coming up with that process, we also went under a review of the music department and world language. So tonight I'm going to present the world language, the music department for that. So what I would like to just be able to express tonight is what we currently do, what direction we see our music department going in, and even possibly, if we think outside the box, a way to pay for it all outside of our regular budget. And now I know I have Karen and Mr. Kaczynski's attention, so I'm going to keep going here. First of all, I want to acknowledge everyone who was involved, our music staff. A lot of them are here tonight. And as Mr. Lazovic said, we were, again, this year, we just found out on Monday that we were made the list again for Best Communities 2013. It used to be top 100 communities, and it's kind of grown, I think, because of the criteria to make the list, and people, and a lot of programs have been stepping up their their offerings and making the list as well. So it's a nice grouping of, I think, of this year about 250 schools nationwide that or districts nationwide that made this list. And it really speaks to what it says, the community. It's really not about personally what I do or Mr. McFarland or Mr. Mayello, but it's how the community has supported music here in Nutley. And so as I go forward with this presentation, there's no need for me in this town to now say why we should keep music in the schools, because it's not even an issue. So what I would like to talk about how our music department can inform learning in a way that will help us achieve our goals district-wide and really help to support the 21st century learner, and how music can really be an integral part of that. So to start, I have a quick segment I'm going to play here, just to give a sense of, I'm here 14 years now, I can't believe it, going into my 15th year next year. I graduated from the Nutley schools, so I do have a passion for this district, and I think maybe that's why I spend a little more time than I should. So I'm going to play a quick segment here, and I want you to think about what does music add to a student's life? Like, why is music important? And I know we all come up with a couple of ideas right away, but I'm going to start here. This should bring this up if I get the right time. I can see it here. Looking for, maybe I can see better there. 10, wait, where is it? 10:30? About there. Okay, there we go. Cello player, if you're watching. This is our high school concert choir in 2009 on stage at Carnegie Hall with a professional orchestra that's called doctoral students from Manhattan School of Music, and they presented the whole 1 hour work on stage. All of this is my 7th period class, all of this happened within the class period. Throughout the year we studied and studied and studied and studied and got to this point. In addition, this was one of the years after many invitations. We actually rented the hall that night, and our band and orchestra played as well. And it was just a great night, I think, for this is the dearest here, by the way. I know it wakes us up a little bit. My point.
Why don't you repeat what you said, because I don't think a lot of...
Oh, while it was on?
Yes.
That was a 2009 presentation at Carnegie Hall. We had been invited about 8 times prior to that. And that was my 2nd or 3rd time conducting, but on that night we decided to rent the hall ourselves. And it was a practically sold-out house. Our band played, our orchestra played, the choralettes sang, and the concert choir sang this, presented Mozart's Requiem. All of it learned in 7th period in a high school class. And so when you think about why was that important, or how did that help students, we get a lot of comments like, it helps people in math, or it, what are some of the other, if you listen to Mozart, then you're going to be smarter. And I'm here to say, it helps people in math. There's a really good math curriculum and really good math teachers. That's what helps people in math. But we can have music inform them on ways to succeed in math by taking some of the things that are intrinsically involved in learning music. And some of those things here, which I even think that this list is not going far enough. But this is a recent New York Post article that listed these 10 skills that children learn from the arts: creativity, confidence, problem solving, perseverance, focus. I'm going to try to go really fast here. This turned into a big conversation in our academy class and our choir classes on what else is there. Yeah, everyone comes up with this list, and I think if I asked all of you to come up with some things tonight, you probably would have come up with this list on your own. But what else is there? And so that's what tonight I'm going to try to explain a little bit on how we can implement a curriculum that really does bring even more than this. This should be a given, I think. In addition, there are things that you can't explain. And as a music teacher, people understand this, but the stories that I get now after that 2009 performance, thinking that that was a pinnacle for me, and then I get students coming back and saying, on tour in Iraq and had to stay up all night watching their camp, and what did they do but sing through the Requiem to stay awake? like these things that you hear, or a student that wrote an essay on this performance and then got into the UPenn biology program because he wrote about something completely different than anyone else who had the same GPA and the same background, and so there's a lot of things that you can't put a finger on exactly, but the rewards are there. So this actually turned into a big conversation that Mr. Lazovic got involved with, and he wrote a whole content page on the Nutley Schools page that you can look up. It's on our website, and he talks about this really isn't a list that advocates for the arts, but this is a list of things that should be happening in every classroom. And so moving forward with our curriculum, I plan to show how we can really reinforce that in a better way than we have been, and moving forward can really help our district. So we're going to talk about what we do have now. Currently, we believe that all students have the opportunity to study music, and that they should get a well-rounded music education to form them to be lifelong performers or appreciators or consumers, whatever that may be, and we aim to provide that to every student in the district. So quickly I'm going to go through what we currently offer, preschool through 6, and all of this too I'm going to put on our school website. I'm going quick today, but you could, if you want a copy or take some time with it, we can do that. We offer general music, pre-K through 6, all students 1 time a week. 4th grade, our students are seen twice a week, and that's because they're getting recorder instruction, and they're also getting general music instruction, and we hope to move that more towards org instruction, which I'll explain a little bit tonight. And then in 5th and 6th grade, they see the general music teacher once, but they also have the opportunity for choir or band, which is a pull-out. And I think we'll also talk about maybe there's a creative way that we can make that pull-out be not a pull-out from an academic area. At the middle school, we offer several courses that it's kind of very vertical, direct continuation of what they learned in the elementary schools. I'm only at 7 minutes. I was told 20, so I have 13. I'm going to be right on time. So Corral, you can see our numbers there. I think it's very impressive that half of the school at the middle school is involved in our ensembles right through next year, and steadily has been going up. We had 345. Last year we had 353, and next year projected 388 students taking part in music. Now this room that you're sitting in was not always here, and I think even the benefits to this district, when we heard that there was a referendum and that there was going to be a music room on that referendum, I made sure that every student got their parents out to vote for that referendum. And if you look at the numbers, I think I could safely say that the music parents had a lot to do with us being able to have these facilities that we have today. It's a great group of people, and we can motivate them to do great things. If we continue to the high school, here's Mr. Maiello trying to conduct his way out of a high school band there. The students in grades 9 to 12 are also offered courses that continue what we offer here at the middle school. And our numbers, current enrollment, you can see also on the rise, 292. We have 322 this year, and it looks like we're projected 333 next year. A quarter of the high school, or more than a quarter of the high school participating in music is a really great number for a public school. And we also have, for the students who maybe want a little bit more out of this, want to be offered a little bit more guidance, and know that they are going to study art, music, or dance at the college level. We have our Academy of Fine and Performing Arts, and Therese is here today. She teaches alongside me with zero period. We come in early mornings, and what we do is we offer those students guidance in what is the application process. It's available to juniors and seniors. So what is the application process? How do you put a portfolio together? How do you keep those deadlines? What do we need to get together to have auditions? And we keep them on track. We give them opportunities to perform for each other. And we give them the guidance that maybe it's difficult to get from our guidance department that don't understand really the rigors of auditioning as a music, art, or dance major. I'm a graduate of Nutley High School. When I graduated Nutley High School, I sat with my guidance counselor and she said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm in the band and I work at Myra's Bakery." Well, she said, "There'd be no music and there's no money in music, so go to culinary school." So I did. So, and my mom paid $50,000 for culinary school, and then I finished culinary school and said, you know what, I want to go to music school. My mother said, that's fine, but I'm not paying for it, find a way. So went off to Las Vegas, got a scholarship, do all those things. But I think that was not necessary. It was a very circuitous path for me to get back to Nutley, and I wouldn't change it for the world, but if we can find a way to inform our students how they can be successful in the arts, and I'm not saying everyone winds up on the stage. We have students who go to study stagecraft, or their costume design, or they want to be arts management, whatever it is. There's many ways that they can keep the arts in their lives, and they can do this for a lifetime. Not only have we been successful with getting students into schools, but we've been getting them into the top music schools lately, and I'm really proud of that fact, and I think it's because we take the time to tell them that you really can be successful in the arts. A lot of people like to say, don't do it. And I know that we're trying to create more mathematicians and scientists and change our economy and get ahead in all those ways, which is really important. But at that point, when all that happens, and hopefully it will, we're going to need more artists to really support that new economy. So I think that there's a lot of merit in what we're doing here, and I'm proud of the fact that we do that where other schools are currently cutting their arts program as close as Bloomfield because of problems there, budget problems. As well, we have students participating in music programs at the college level who are not majors, which is also a testament, I think, to what we're doing here, that they want to continue. It's not just a 5-credit, one-time requirement. It's a passion that we instill in them, and they become lifelong performers, even if they're not majoring in music. We also offer a list of co-curricular opportunities from our marching band, jazz bands. We have a men's choir, string ensemble, musical theater program, percussion ensemble, 2 youth choirs now that's run by Miss Monty here on Wednesday evenings, our madrigals, and a summer music school, not for students who didn't do well in music, but for students who want to continue music over the summer. And I wonder if that wouldn't be a good academic idea as well. Why do we not offer academically students who want to know a little bit more about math and science over the summer, give them an opportunity to do that like we do in music? It might, but that's not my area, but I'm just saying. It might be a good idea. So this is what we found through the program review process. And this really, you can see it. This really was a great process for us because we all honestly looked, and a lot of music teachers are here, exactly what we're doing, and we're getting good results, but what can we do to maybe change things to get even better results? And guided by Ms. Villani, who gave me a lot of input, and working with the staff, we came up with these findings. Our last curriculum was implemented in 2009-2010, and although our staff felt it offered some good curriculum mapping, we really aren't utilizing it as far as the staff is not utilizing it district-wide. Current instruction, we incorporated an eclectic approach in regards to methodology, and I'll talk more about what methodology is in music, but we're doing many different things in the different schools, and it wasn't until we had to create a common assessment that we realized maybe a better common language, a common method across the board, 5 schools, would behoove our students to come to the middle school understanding the same concept in the same way and not having to reteach a lot of things, and of course then that benefits the high school as well. We did a review of the way that we're assessing in class, and we had varying methods of assessment, and we're going to talk about how we can maybe align those. We administered our first common assessment last year in grades 4, 7, and 8, and we're going to continue that in 4, 7, 8, 10, and 12, those grades this year. And they're a great barometer of what our students are actually learning, what they know, and how we can inform future music instruction. Our resources, again, are depending on the methodology. We have a lot of different method books and text being used, or we're buying individual things, and we'd like to align that. And professional development. We have several teachers now who are taking some work classes. One of our new hired teachers, Aubrey Stoyanov, who's here tonight, are you vice president now?
Well, will be September.
Vice president of?
The Northern New Jersey School Work Association.
So which is a great resource for us, and I know a couple of other teachers here have been taking those Saturday courses. Maybe we'll talk about how through professional development we can actually get them certified to be work instructors, and I'm going to show a little bit tonight of why I think that's a great way to go for our kids. And then of course our teachers also take advantage of the opportunities provided by the district itself. So our first recommendation as far as curriculum. we are recommending that we approve the rewrite of our curriculum and that we could start that revision process. And one of the main points would be to create grade level expectations for every school based on some common language that would represent content that Nutley students would be expected to know at each grade level. And this is not a curriculum, but they are learner outcomes that will be assessed at each grade level to appraise student achievement. And they should not be taught in isolation, but they'll be bundled, so the students will be learning these things through active participation, whether it is singing, dancing, barred instruments, narrating, speaking, whatever it is, and through all of those things and being able to do each is really how we're going to bring our students to a new cognitive ability in the music class and see the benefits, I think, in other areas. Our second is creation of learning strands, which will isolate each of those areas: performance, creative expression, elements and principles, artistic perceptions, response evaluation, historical and cultural context, and how we can connect to other content areas. I think that is really the most important thing that we can do. Mr. Lazovic came on board and Ms. Villani, and we've been spending a lot of time on data. And one of the things that we realized when we open up PMI, and I look at the data of the New Jersey ASK scores, ASK scores, the New Jersey ASK scores, when you look at our music students and you look at the way they score really high in the math component of the New Jersey ASK, yet a lot of them are deficient or approaching deficiency in language arts. And we found that really interesting. And so I went to the middle school teacher, I talked to Mr. McPartland about this and Ms. Monty, and we said, well, how is that affecting us? Well, first of all, we would like to see our students succeeding in every way that they can, but if they're really deficient in language arts, they're not able to take music at the high school level because their elective is taken by a remedial course. So to help maybe inform ways to transfer knowledge from music and become better writers, we've implemented a lot of journal writing, different things in class, and I have been assigning a lot of essays this year. Now I should have thought of that before assigning an essay to a class of 120, because then you have to grade 120 essays. Hence the bags under my eyes. But I do see the effects. We're going to talk about ORF, and I just observed an ORF lesson, an ORF concert that Aubrey Stoyanov gave at Radcliffe School. And we'll talk a little bit more about that concert, but following that concert, this is where I felt like it was a success. I went to the class she offered after that concert, and she had the class sit down, and instead of saying, we're going to watch the video of the concert, she said, we're going to critique. What does critique mean? And students raised their hands and tried to give a definition of the word, and then some said you could be a food critic, you could be a movie critic, you could be a writing critic, and they talked about what a critic is. And then Ms. Stoyanov gave a list of words that they could use to describe the concert, and said, I'm going to give you this list of words, and you're going to write your critique while we watch the video. So right there, we were evaluating their performance, becoming better musicians, but also increasing their ability to see something, to take a set of words, and be able to create a writing sample from that. And this is 3rd and 4th grade. And this is where that was it was absolutely a music lesson, but it also supported the general core curriculum and language arts. And that's the type of thing that I think we would love to see more of in district. Next is agreeing on a common methodology, and while we're talking about ORF, that would be I think the way to go. And what ORF is it's a way to teach music that takes what children know without having to teach them. It's what they feel internally. For instance, just basing a whole methodology on an interval. The first thing that you hear students sing in a playground is na 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 na, and we think, why do they say that? Why is that the interval we start with? But if we all would, let's do this together. If you would all breathe out twice and breathe in once, I want you to listen to the room. So it's out through your nose. We're going to breathe out twice through our nose and in once. Let's try it together. Ready, and you hear that interval, da da da, right? It's the same thing we based the lullaby on Brahms, da 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 da. And the reason it's the first interval that we know is because it's the sound of the mother's breath, right? So it's the easiest thing for us to sing because it's the first thing we heard. So if we can connect that very intrinsic thing in a student and teach them music, and then show them how connection from that to others' content areas is possible, whether it is being more confident, better mathematician, whatever it is, our curriculum will inform students to, so I think, really rise to new heights. And ORC is based just on that. You have barred instruments, dancing, recorder. All the students learn all of the different things, and on the drop of the hat, they move to the next thing. So if you were singing, now you're playing recorder. If you were dancing, now you're accompanying on barred instruments. And it just is a very student-centered way of teaching music that helps support what we want to be a student-centered way of teaching here in the Nutley schools. So then with revision and rewriting our music curriculum, we'd like to undergo that process and just highlight things that we can highlight, assessments that are attainable or approachable for all of our teachers, ways to connect to the Common Core, develop grade-level, user-friendly assessments, and then look at what resources will be needed. Facilities. To be able to deliver this curriculum the right way, we need rooms to do it. And so here's an example of Washington School, where I can remember being on that floor and Mrs. Bimby teaching me when I was Mrs. Bender's not here anymore, but she was my student teacher when Mrs. Bimby went on maternity leave. I think that's kind of funny. So this is Washington School and what's available to them. This is the corner of Radcliffe School, but you can kind of see the ORC arrangement there of the barred instruments and what's needed to deliver that curriculum. Unfortunately, we have one school right now, Lincoln School, where we're teaching in the auditorium, and it's virtually impossible to deliver this curriculum. So my number one recommendation as far as facilities is that we find a room. And now I know how difficult that is. It's been I think 4 or 5 years now in the Lincoln School auditorium where it was supposed to be a one-year fix. We're a crowded district, and I realize that, and we're happy that we're still delivering music, but it would be really imperative to find a way to have a dedicated room at that school so that they could benefit, because I think they would benefit just as much or more than the rest of the district being able to receive this curriculum. The other recommendation is to begin seeing 3rd grade twice a week like we see 4th grade, 5th and 6th grade band to meet separately when possible, and then looking at ways to be creative with teacher scheduling. Maybe a teacher starts later in the day, but music teacher and stays later, but meets that band or choir outside of the school day, and then they're not being pulled from math or science or whatever it is. So maybe be creative with scheduling, same amount of time working a day, but stagger the entrances. And of course, all of these things are just recommendations that we're going to pursue or to investigate, and what we finally come up with will be, of course, up to the board. In Walker Middle School, reinstating our general music course as we're moving towards the middle school model, and look for a true orchestra string ensemble setting, even if that means an after-hour setting where we can incorporate maybe an artist in residence, because the one thing that we just are not able to offer the way that we should in this district is a true string person teaching strings, and it's a deficiency that I think that there are ways that we could conquer. Additional requirements. So, one concern is as we're moving forward and putting more demands on our students, such as every student in the middle school eventually taking world language, that we look that there's a schedule that can fit music as well. Because right now they're only offered 2 electives, and if they are required to take world language, then that's left with 1 elective, and if the 1 elective happens to be something else, or they need remediation or whatever it is, it really would, those numbers that we see in the music program would really dwindle. So hopefully as we move towards the middle school model, they'll be able to have more choices, maybe if it's every other day, music happening, or whatever we come up with, but just that we're able to offer our music choices along with all the other. And then at Nutley High School, we have separating funds 1 and 2, alternating maybe an alternate space for our music lab. I'm trying to go a little quicker. We're going to start our Tri-M Music Honor Society next year, looking for storage, and then even here maybe a viable option 2 plan. One of the issues that we have is our students often do not have enough time in the day to take everything they need. And so if there's a way to offer things either in the summer, maybe they need to satisfy their applied arts. They're satisfying their fine arts, but it's only 2.5 credits. Maybe we offer that 2.5 credit class as part of our summer music school, and that would open up another elective or full class for them during the school day. If we had a string teacher, again, if we had a artist in residence who was a true string teacher that maybe met a string ensemble after hours, and after 2 years of being in that ensemble, which is already started by Mr. Makarowski, 2 years of being in that ensemble, that satisfied as an option 2, their credits during the school day, well, that would open up something for that student. They could be taking another language or an AP class. I just think there's ways that we could be creative. These are just ideas. They're not set in stone or the way that we're definitely going to go, but I think we can think outside of the box and offer more to our students. Technology, Ian, we've been working on the projectors in each room and whiteboards and tables, tablets for manuscript display. All these things are starting to happen. A sound system like this in every room would be great, and then a budget for the theater. Staff, the one recommendation that I really hope would be could happen next year is that my job currently, coordinator of music, I'm observing K-12, I'm teaching 5 classes, and it's just a lot for one person. And I think it really needs to be split so we can have a true coordinator and a high school choral director. Mr. Lazovic has talked to me about maybe ways we could step towards that with maybe a halftime teacher one year and then moving towards that, but it's just a lot. When Mr. Bukowski left, the 2 jobs were combined, I think, for an effort to not have to make any cuts, which I agreed to, and now here we are 3 years later, and it's just a lot, especially with all the new, very important, good things happening in our district, but it's a lot of work, paperwork. Gino Bellani will tell you that maybe I'm just a little too many things going on to be able to keep all the plates spinning sometimes. Then continuing with our current elementary teachers, consideration to student class load. So I have a class, 7 periods, 109 high school students, and then right before that is core let 60. I know we say each teacher has to teach 6, but with classes that large, sometimes the work involved, especially if you're assigning essays, becomes a little burdensome. So if there were the opportunity to teach like 4 really large classes or 5 really large classes, that would leave a period free for travel, and then we could have more vertical alignment. So if we had a really great brass instructor, they could teach at the middle school and the high school, and it would really help the program. It would make more sense. It's what the model programs are doing, so it's something that we can maybe look into. And then finally, investigate a charter for the arts. So here we are in Nutley. We are about, I think, 8 years past when they tried to open a charter school here in Nutley. And what they wanted to do was take Nutley students and have a charter for the arts. And for each student that went to this school, and they projected, I think, only 10 to start the first year, our, what is it, $12,000 per student now? Our $12,000 would go with them, right? But per student, our $12,000 per student would go with them, so that's $120,000. That is more than double our current full budget K-12. So my argument with that was, and why I was so concerned about that was, if you take 12 students out of Nutley High School, you're not going to buy less books, you're not going to have less heat, nothing is going to change, but $120,000 would be out of our revenue. It would have destroyed what they were trying to support by having a charter for the arts, would have destroyed it here. And it was only because I was in Starbucks, and I was behind a person who was at Gymnastics World. I think, Freddie, will remember this because you were fire chief or captain. And the guy said to me, he had the gymnastics school down the same road, and said, we started talking about the charter school. I said, I don't understand how they're going to do it when I was told I can only have 10 people at a time in my building because of fire egress. So the second I heard that, and if you know me, for me to get off of line at Starbucks to go and tell someone something it had to be big, I just turned right around, I went right to Freddie, we talked about it, I think, and before you knew it, within a week they were, yes. So I think now, Bloomfield is cutting their programs. Belleville is really downsizing their programs. In this area, there's a deficiency for really strong arts programs. Why couldn't we investigate a way to possibly have a charter here in Nutley, if that's possible, located in our high school? Even if it were 10 students coming with that $120,000, that would be twice the budget that we currently get. I could see it supporting not just music, but art where we need it to, or, I don't know the legalities, but I just think maybe having the opportunity to investigate that and see, look outside the box and maybe support our program in a different way. Just a thought. If you have any questions, you can reach me on email. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaderi. And if any of you don't know Mr. Kaderi, I'm sure most of you do, you can see his enthusiasm. Here, he has the same enthusiasm for what he teaches during the day and the children that he works with. And you're a credit to our district, and I appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank you.
And I hope we can help you out in the future on some of your long-range plans.
I think so. Great, thank you.
So I just have to say a few things. I'm a little Mr. Kadari, and I grew up here. We're just Mr. Herbeck, Mr. Bukowski, and Mr. Cohair, and that was the entire music program in the high school, and I was in the band. And then I graduated from here and really haven't played music or done anything. Mr. Canary came into this program, and we started changing the way things we are. And I say it's all encompassing in our district, because if you look at our choirs and our music department now, and I can tell you it was different when I was here, we have football players there, we have people in wrestling, girls softball, ice hockey, we have true sports people tied into the arts that didn't occur many years ago. And he's really energized that. And we're going back to Carnegie Hall, and we're going to Connecticut, the Festival of Gold, there was a jazz festival. There was no jazz ensembles, there were no programs like this. I really have to say that this district, before I've gotten here, but since Mr. Canary's here, and I think he has the support of this board and Mr. Lazovich, is really taking our music program to a level that's unbelievable. I have to say, I see this Dusek sitting back here, or son Patrick, I know him from hockey, but he loved hockey for music, and that's fine, Mike, you stole me, that's all right. But he's a good hockey player. But to hear him play, and I just talked to him, he's out helping young kids on ice, he volunteers a lot with his father the other day, and he's going to be doing a French horn solo playing while we're singing in Carnegie Hall. That's unheard of. Those are things that schools would only love to have, and we have them here. It's really due to all the teachers in this room, Mr. Morell and everybody else that's here. But Mr. Canary has really taken this and gotten the things all these teachers need to the next level. And Mr. Kaczynski, I'd like to say
Thank you,
his support
Mr.
this
Clark.
year.
Any other board members like to make any comments? Thank you very much. At this time, committee reports. Mr. Coker?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met on March 19th. Amongst the topics that we discussed, resolutions in tonight's agenda, including the budget, we discussed those things. We discussed pruning and removal of trees. Mrs. Yeaman is going out for bids. We have a state contract, and in order to, if we can find someone who will do it for 10% less than that, then we have an alternate source of getting it done. And we also recommended that if we do find somebody who's 10% less than the state, that we tell the township about it, so that perhaps we could do something jointly that would get a better price. We discussed the health premiums in the up-and-coming budget, and to make sure that we're on track there, because that could be a volatile number, and 1% change in the healthcare rate is like $80,000, so we want to make sure that we're on track there. We also discussed the commission that the broker receives, and Mrs. Yeaman is going to put together a list of pros and cons for including it in the premium or excluding it from the premium for our next meeting, and then we'll make a recommendation to the full board of what's the best way to handle that. We discussed the energy auctions. There were 2 of them, and we did not feel we got favorable results from those auctions. We asked Ms. Yeamans to take a look at what the SEM is doing, and we gave her a price that if the SEM was less than, it would be more favorable than the auction. And since our meeting, Mrs. Yeamans has found out that the SEM came in at 0.087, which is more favorable than their ceiling, and we will be staying with the SEM if that is the case. The energy is a $400,000 cost, so a small variation in kilowatt can have a big swing in the dollars we spend. The waste removal contract, Mrs. Yeaman is renewing it for another year. The intention was to go in with the township, but they had renewed it before we were involved with them, and they're coming up next year, so we're just asking our current contractor if we can extend it 1 more year, and then next year go in with the township on the shared service basis. Finally, we discussed the audit of the financial projections for the current year, and also we recommended that there be an audit of the referendum funds, and to see exactly where we are at with respect to that. And the referendum funds have come up a number of times in discussion at the meetings, and we do not have a fixed time frame when we have to expend that money or release it back to the taxpayers. There are a number of things that have to happen before we get to the stage where we can use it for other things. In particular, that the contractors must issue a certificate of completion. Retainage is liquidated, and a permanent certificate of occupancy is given to us before we can go ahead. And then we have a reason, we can do on reasonable projects and within a reasonable time frame before we have to give it back. That basically is our review. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Dr. Reed?
Yes, Mr. President. Before I begin my academic committee report, I just want to thank Mr. Candera. Is he still in the room? He left. There he is. Again, with the heavy lifting involved with this curriculum review process has been amazing. And I want to thank again Ms. Villani in terms of her input into that process, having met with Ms. LaGuardia, Mr. Materia, and Mr. Canderi throughout. And just to echo Mr. Scalera's sentiments in terms of your passion and commitment to the students in this district, and we've truly benefited from that. And that's evidenced by some of the stuff that you had presented this evening, your Carnegie Hall presentation, but beyond that, being recognized as one of the best communities in the United States providing this type of activity. So I want to commend you for that. Thank you. Regarding our academic committee report, the academic committee met on March 5th, and we reviewed a whole host of issues which Superintendent Lazovic did address earlier this evening. First and foremost, this notion of progress target action plans, which will replace by the state this idea of adequate yearly progress reports, AYP. So now we have this opportunity to create action plans for each of our buildings. This should appear, did it appear on our last agenda for March 11th? Gina, do you know by any chance? So it did, okay, so that went through approval, the action plan process. We also discussed the special education IEP services, more so the occupational therapy component. And I know that Ms. Gamins as well as Mr. Lazovic will be reviewing how cost-effective the approach is in terms of actually working with this contracted hour piece, an hourly rate, or do we move towards hiring a full-time staff member? In the past, there was essentially no communication between service providers and parents as to the sessions that were being held each week. So now there's an opportunity to introduce this communication line so that parents as well as the provider can actually sign off on that information to make that more of a streamlined process. Mr. Lazovic addressed the math pilot update. It's exciting to see that we are moving in that direction. There's 3 pilot programs that we have essentially explored for this process, and then we will see for the new year in terms of the teachers' input in terms of where they want to go and take it in that direction. We also are working towards our language arts model classroom training update. We have consultant Klein, who essentially has helped address and provide the training for our teachers, so we are working towards our new language arts program. So we've made definitive strides in that direction. Also, our elementary school science program update. Mr. Banyan is in the process of selecting teachers, obtaining science kits, and scheduling professional development to implement our elementary school science pilot update. Mr. Lazovic also talked about our non-tenured staff review, which is taking place tomorrow, Wednesday, as well as Thursday. So administrators will gather information on section staffing and prepare to discuss the progress of non-tenured teachers. And last but not least, instructional rounds. I know that Lincoln School had the opportunity to visit the high school a few weeks back. I think more recently, Radcliffe School had the opportunity to visit the middle school. And this has been the first time that this has ever been introduced within the Nutley school system, and I think it's an opportunity for us to explore, at least to get the feedback from our teachers in terms of how that experience was for them. And again, I think it's an exciting time to be chair of the academic committee and also be part of this process with all the new exciting academic initiatives that are taking place in the district, and I'm proud to be part of that effort. So that's my report.
Thank you very much for your report and for your time and commitment. Any other reports? I'm going to be,
I have the admin, and I have the,
you can do the admin? I was going to do it.
oh, you told me
Yes,
that.
yeah, you do it. Mrs. Slade, the floor is yours.
Go ahead, Charlie. No, you're good.
We had an administration committee meeting also that Mr. Scalera and Mr. Spazzato and I were at. And most of it was covered by Mr. Lazovic. We talked about the Washington School Stop, Drop, and Go process that we're looking at in conjunction with Mr. Scarpelli from the Township of Nutley. We also talked and spent some time looking at the bollards and the artist renditioning of what the plans are for Radcliffe School. We'll be meeting with the Radcliffe School PTO probably within the next month to make sure they're aware of our plans. That was a commitment from this board to look at, again, Washington School and Radcliffe School. We had a good presentation from the National Archery Program, and Mr. Wayne Thompson came in and presented a program that we had in the school system a while back, and I guess we've kind of dropped off a little bit, where our children, as part of their gym program, would be familiarizing them with the bow and arrow, the use of the bow and arrow, training with the bow and arrow certainly on a child level. There's some equipment that they give us which is free. The mats, the targets, the arrows, the bows that can be adjusted down to train with a fourth grade student up to a senior. When the next day or 2 days after that, I met with the athletic director, and we have quite a bit of that equipment on hand already. We just kind of slacked off from its use. The overall reason for it is certainly to make them familiar with the equipment, but then to compete at a different level with students throughout New Jersey. So we're going to be implementing this program again, just making it a little more user-friendly, and take a look at the equipment we have along with the equipment that can be donated. We spent some time talking about the special services staffing, which was important to that committee and important to the entire board. And obviously tonight we're making one step in the right direction, and we'll have a lot more work to do, but we're working hard on trying to bring forward the special services needs in the community. We did spend some time with talking about the athletic and our different programs that we have going on now with the athletic director. This has been a busy month for all the board members. I'm sure you all know between our meetings, our special committee meetings, between tricky trays, between everything else that's going on. It's been a hectic month, but I appreciate everybody being out there and the work that we're all doing. Mr. Squire, you have something else?
Well, just a couple things on there, just to touch on, if you could, just from our meeting, and just cross over, but the long-range facilities plan, we went over that and discussed some of those things and what we're doing with the architects, what Mr. Lazarevich talked about. The high school parking lot, which is going to be redone at the end of the season, and possibly some improvements to maximize use of the space with the library. Our security plans, we have actually been running some security drills. Radcliffe School had a lockdown the other day, and then actually while the lockdown was still going on, just finishing up, the fire alarm went off, so it really became a real-life training scenario. On the communication side, we're trying to work out a district-wide communication system. We met with Mr. Lazarevich and I met with the mayor and the deputy fire chief. We're waiting for some answers back on that to be able to clarify some communications and lack of it we have between the buildings and the district. On the athletic side, I just want to make a separate comment. This week was like our first startup of the next sports season here. I just want to give credit to especially our president of the board, Mr. Kaczynski, because I think I drove him crazy on at least 25 calls this week. But we have some learning curves to go, and thanks to him working with Mr. Pyro and Mr. Lazarevich by week's end, we're pretty close to being on track. And I say it all the time, it's about all of the kids, all of the programs. We shouldn't make one program great and let 3 others suffer or not have things going on. They really jumped in this week. And then one new thing just to add to this, we've talked about it, it kind of comes between us and the finance, but in the budget being passed by the commission on April 25th is $275,000. And they already have 50 reserves at $325 to install the fiber to connect for next year, to connect all the schools and municipal buildings together as part of the shared service program, so that we would be able to cut off paying for whichever cable service company we're using now. To connect our buildings, we'll be on our own township fiber, not paying for that. That'll be a cost savings for the district, and more money we'll have for education for our children. So that's also happening in this next month, which is a great thing under our shared services.
Maybe we should just clarify that to some of the board members, in case you're not familiar with it. I guess the commissioners are putting a certain amount of money in their budget, $275,000, to do the fiber connections, which will include not only the township of Nutley, but it'll include the school board also. So that's something we don't have to share the expense with, and obviously will benefit from it.
Yeah, I thought we talked about it as a finance committee some time ago, and I thought
it wasn't cost effective for us, but be curious to see what comes out
Well,
of it.
well, that was a wrong submission. There was no cost to us, and we will go on it for free. It was originally stated, which was a misconception, that we had to come up with some funding. So it will be a true cost to be able to do this without any cost to us whatsoever.
I was just informed of it tonight, so I'm sure we'll hear more about it as we move forward. Any other committee reports?
I have the community action. One of our several committees that we're serving on, I serve on the community action team, and we had a meeting on March 19th. We're coming close, and I'll just give a short description of what that's going to entail. Project-based learning is defined as a method under which students learn and develop through active participation in thoughtful, organized service which meets the need of the community. Learning service fosters responsibility and is integrated into and enhances the academic curriculum. Project-based service learning is a way for educators to arrange their students' learning in a way that provides students the opportunity to apply academic and functional skills to real-world problems. The learning is guided by a set of key elements that include investigation, academic preparation, and the community's needs. So this will be where students will be able to work and do extra credit on community service projects that will be approved by the district with the teachers in coordination to help their GPA. They'll be able to do a community service project. They'll have to encompass learning, writing a report, doing those type of things. So they'll learn about the community at the same time, be involved in community service, as well as writing reports in the classes. It may be something with math, it may be over into English, something to do with our health care or social studies, but they'll actually be able to earn credit to assist in their GPA by doing these programs also. This committee should be coming up with a final report, hopefully by the end of the season. Thank you.
Any other reports? Thank you. At this time, now we come to the portion of our meeting we allow members of the public to address the board. In this section, we allow questions or comments on only the resolutions addressed in tonight's agenda. Our board board regulation 601 allow 20 minutes for these communications. Each person shall be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask you to try to stay within this requirement. Speakers may speak more than once only after all others wishing to speak on a topic have been heard. All statements will be directed to me as the chairperson. No one may address board members individually. Please be reminded that if your statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, or redundant, your participation may be terminated. Please remember to always state your name and address each and every time you address the board. Will the first person come forward?
Hello, my name is Mary Dudisick. I'm at 29 Daly Street. Came here because I was very interested in the music curriculum. I have a student who's a junior. He's going to be a performance major in college. That's his goal. And I was really excited to hear what's going on. I think using the curriculum and tying it in with the academic policies, it just makes such sense. My concern is that while you might beef up the curriculum and you might have a great understanding about how we can incorporate musical learning throughout every subject, that has to be tied in with the guidance department's understanding of what the colleges are looking for a music student. And I know that with my older daughter, I did a lot of research on what colleges are looking for. And it's very important that when the admissions office is looking at your child's transcript, they're told by the guidance department, how rigorous was this curriculum? It's a very subjective assessment that each individual guidance counselor makes. It tells you, based on what your child took in our school, it's either very demanding or average or below average. And based on my meetings with the guidance people about my son's senior schedule and his desire to really load up on music, I was getting a really strong feeling that they didn't value the rigor in a music curriculum. And my concern is that you look into that and find out, is guidance aware that the curriculum in music and the arts has as much rigor in many areas as our STEM courses? And I know this from research, and I said, let's really find out a number. And I just popped in the National Association for College Admissions Counseling website and found out that the grades in your college prep curriculum are the most important factor, and strength of curriculum is the second most important factor. That's higher than the SAT scores, the essay, the recommendations. I mean, it's a critically important component of your child's package that's sent to colleges. And I just wanted to make sure that that's addressed when our curriculum department admissions, when everybody's looking at this. It's not just your grades. If you have a student who's taking a lot of music courses and the guidance department determines them to be less rigorous than any other curriculum in the school, your child can really get knocked down quite a bit. And it's also a different approach. Just as we have VOTEC kids being viewed differently, or a kid going to the military, they're going to be viewed differently. Music is viewed differently. The audition is primarily how a child is chosen to get into a school. And I think sometimes the guidance department is a little tunnel vision, looking at the academic side, SATs. And we have to give those kids the freedom to explore the music and push as much into their curriculum as possible. So I don't know if anyone want to take this?
Yes, we'll certainly take that.
Yeah.
And I know Ms. Maloney is very in touch with the counselors, with the guidance counselors, and I know we've stressed this before, but I appreciate it, I'm sure we'll stress it again. This weekend, I spent all day Sunday reviewing some of the resumes for the Unico children that are applying to the colleges throughout the country, and there were letters in there from the guidance counselors, and quite a few of them had mentioned art and music. Quite a few of them were mentioning specifically Italian art and music, which is what they were applying for. And the guidance counselors were very specific and very highly recommended the courses that they told about the strength of the course. So I did find it myself that they seem to be on top of it, but we will stress the point even more.
Right, it's actually on the common application.
Yes.
There are 5 designations that is checked off by the guidance counselor. And it'd be helpful to know, does the state get involved? My understanding is it's just really up to the school to rank the rigor of curriculum that a child took based on what the school offers and what this child has chosen to take. But if you're knocked out of a course because of scheduling issues, sometimes your rigor does go down
Yes.
out of your control. So how does the guidance department take that into consideration when you're checking those boxes? Is it things that you can't control and you weren't able to fit in this course or that course? And you don't want kids who've taken music or the arts for 3 years to be told, you should drop it because your GPA will suffer. I mean, that's not what colleges
Especially
want to
if
see.
that's what they're looking to go forward in life.
But even if they're not, it's just, the colleges want to see
A
kids who have
well-rounded
a
student.
passion for something. And that nothing's going to show your passion more than sticking with it and getting a leadership role and going to Carnegie Hall, all the wonderful things this music department offers to our kids. It'd be a real shame if they didn't see that. And I'm looking at the teachers my son had in grammar school. They're in the back row, Mr. Raymond, Mr. Mack. I mean, that inspired me. There were wonderful teachers in this program. And what they're teaching our kids is just as rigorous as the science. Somebody who took dozens of science courses in college, I can tell you, I can't read a note either. So to me,
We
music
appreciate
is
it.
more tough.
And we will keep an eye on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to be heard? Resolution items at this time. Mr. Reed?
Sorry. Someone's coming.
Pardon me?
Just one more.
Okay.
Good evening, Nancy Simonisi, 314 Harrison Street. I just want to say a few things. First of all, I want to say that I'm a music teacher and I live in town. And so I really understand as a parent of kids in this town and as a music teacher what the level of commitment and the outstanding program that we have here in Nutley. Music teachers, every one of them, from elementary school, where we went to Lincoln School, the teachers there, Mrs. Bender, Mr. Raymond, the teachers at the middle school, and now Mr. Maiello, that my daughter has. They've all been so supportive and so above and beyond. And I just want to express my thanks because my daughter's graduating this year.
Thank you.
With that said as well, I'm aware of some scheduling issues that we've just talked about.
Just, are we talking about resolution items right now, or is this something that we want to address later?
I don't know. It's about
Is it something that's on the
scheduling.
resolution?
I'm not quite sure.
Okay, well, why don't we wait, we'll be through our resolutions pretty fast, and then
Go
we'll
ahead.
come back up and entertain them. Resolution items, Mr. Reed?
So we're going to move forward.
Yes,
Okay. Academic resolution.
yes, sir, sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. President. I make a motion to move academic resolutions 1 through 3 as written, please.
Second.
Roll call, Mrs. Patricia. I'm sorry, any discussion on that? Before we, any discussion on 1 through 3? If not,
Mrs. Stanchek Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Clifton?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Scalera?
Yes.
Mrs. Spinata?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
yes. Mr. Scalera, administration, please.
I move, and I believe it's now 1 through 3 right now, personnel. Is that correct?
No, 1 through 3.
1 to 2, I move academic registration, resolutions 1 through 2.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, Mr. President.
Mrs. Stanchek Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Clifton?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Scalera?
Yes.
Mr. Spizzato?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes. Finance, Mr. Klein.
Yes, Mr. President, I move to introduce finance resolutions 1 through 11 as written.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Stanchek Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Cookton?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Scalera?
Yes.
Mr. Spizzato?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes. Personnel, Ms. Danczyk?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Introduce our first one. We have
Yes,
1
Mr.
and 2, right?
Yep, yes, Mr. President, I move resolution items, personnel resolution items 1 and 2 is written.
Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Stanchek Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Cookton?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Scalera?
Yes.
Mr. Spizzato?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes. At this time, I'd like to introduce our new interim director of special services, Mrs. Schifferhouse. Dr. Schifferhouse. Okay, at this session, we allow questions or comments to all school-related matters. Our regulations allow 30 minutes for these communications. Again, each person should be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask you to try to stay within that requirement. As I stated earlier, all statements will be directed to me. At this time, we'll entertain, would you like to speak?
Sorry about that.
That's okay, that's not a problem. Just trying to
No problem.
follow our
I
protocol.
get it. Two things. One concern of mine with regard to the music program has to do with scheduling. As you know, there are 125 students in the concert choir, and there are, I don't know, 60-something in the concert band. My concern is about scheduling for students and orchestra as well, where students are sometimes not able to take those courses that they have been taking since 4th grade because there are singletons that happen during those times. My request is to possibly, since that is the course with the most enrollment, to schedule those courses if possible, and then the singletons at other times when those courses do not occur. I understand that there might be so many singleton-type courses that sometimes it can't be avoided, but it should be a strong consideration so those students don't have an interruption in their participation and enrollment in those courses. That's one.
That is a concern that we have discussed it amongst ourselves, and I'm sure the superintendent and Mrs. Valani are aware.
Right, I understand that, for example, the strings program took a big hit. It was maybe last year, the year before, the enrollment dropped quite a bit because of the scheduling problem at the high school level. My other thing is, I'm sorry that I understand that Mr. Lazar cannot be here, but I just want to make a statement about the GT program. It's a very important program dear to me and dear to my daughter, who is now in 8th grade, who had the benefit of participating in the program when she was much younger, when we had 3 GT teachers providing services to these students. Now, GT is different than enrichment. GT is a program where certain students have to take an IQ test and meet qualifications to get into this program. And as there were so many different offerings that I'm sure you've heard about, lawfare and all these things. It's not just 40 minutes a week. Students have assignments and things that they have to work on, and they work several lunch hours with 3 teachers that we had around the district. And since we had the 3, they were really able to deliver the full curriculum that it was meant to be and that was instituted originally. So I've seen the program, go from one person to hiring 2 others to help, and then back to nothing again. A program can't survive if you do something like that to it. And students have benefited. They were competing throughout Essex County with school districts like Milburn and Livingston and Bloomfield, and really, they were right up there with them, getting awards and coming back with a great experience, knowing that they're right on par with students in other districts. So the GT program is much more than an enrichment program. And in fact, these GT students that you had early on are the same students that you're hearing, such as Christina Allegra, achieving these great things and getting a benefit from this program. So my plea is to please maintain, if not bring the program back to what it used to be, so it can serve our students who have those needs, even though they might be getting all A's. You say, oh, they're great, they're getting all A's, but it doesn't mean that their academic needs are really being met. As seen by the program that it was originally with lawfare, there was a medieval festival, there was an inventions fair, there were so many different things that these students benefited from that have gone by the wayside because of what happened to the program. So my plea is to please reinstate it to what it used to be. Let's get 2 teachers back and really deliver it the way it was meant to be.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard?
Terry Court, 45 Hampton Place. I'm the spokesperson for the Nutley Parent Advocacy Network. I just wanted to add something to this mother's statement. Back in February when I was here and I was kind of adamant about my view on GT, I just wanted to say, I remember Mr. Lazovic saying how the elementary school teachers were going to take over, and I thought about that for a while. And I just wanted to say something because I do work in 2 elementary schools and I see how hard these elementary school teachers work. They have classes they are not homogeneous classes. It's not everybody on the same level. They're dealing with many different levels, many different situations. Kids who have English as a second language, there's special ed, they're dealing with inclusion kids. It's very difficult for them to try to get everybody's needs met. So now on top of this, they're teaching language arts and math and social studies and science, and let's not forget test preparation for the New Jersey Ask. And on top of all of this, now they're going to be asked to give this enrichment for these students. And I have to say to myself, being in 2 elementary schools and watching these other classroom teachers run around like chickens without their heads, I don't know how these teachers in Nutley are going to be able to do it. I know that they put their all into it. It's not easy being an elementary school teacher. It really isn't. And I just want the board to understand that it really is a difficult thing for them, and for them to do this one added thing to provide an enrichment program on top of everything else they're going to be able to do. I just find it's not going to be able to be something that they're going to be able to do, and it's going to be pushed off to the wayside. And I know they do a great job, and I just want to applaud them for what they do. And I'd hate to see that type of program watered down to that point. So that's just me talking out loud now.
We appreciate it, and the board does have concerns also.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Good evening, Barbara McGarty, 43 Brown Street. I just want to make a few comments on the music program. I'd like to thank Mr. Kandari and the entire music department throughout the district. I've had one child graduated a few years ago who went through the music program from elementary school, is in Ohio State to be a athletic trainer, physical therapist, however, has incorporated music because her love of it from this program, and has now also taking courses for classical music and dance to hopefully physically train with dancers. That being said, the requiem that they had done in Carnegie Hall, they're studying now because it's a college level ability, and our kids have done that through this program, which is incredible. I also have another daughter who's a senior, who is an athlete as well as a singer, and is dedicated equally to both, and splits her time to attend whatever rehearsal she needs to attend, and also accomplish her swimming. I also work in the district, and I have seen what the elementary school teachers have accomplished with the program and incorporating special needs children into the program, which is overwhelming to see a student with special needs to be able to play a violin. That was through Mr. Raymond, however, and to sing their little hearts out on stage when they perform. And I just want to commend the entire district for the music program because it's incredible. So thank you, Mr. Kandari, and all of the music teachers. Thank you.
We feel the same way. Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to be heard? Any motion for adjournment?
New business?
All business at this time?
Mr. Ginsky, if I could, it goes back to music 1 minute, and I just have to acknowledge, I have to say something. Mr. Baron Raymond sitting up in the back. And I just have to talk about 1 minute about our music program. Yeah, I just want to let you know, he's performed with Rod Stewart, Yvonne Helm, McIntyre Murphy, Gene Smith, the Blues Brothers. It's very serious to the quality, very serious to the quality of the educators that we have doing music for our children in Nutley. And I just want to acknowledge that because he was sitting here the whole time period, and he happens to be a great, great teacher in our district for music. And truly was a tough decision. My son gave up music with him to go to the choir, Mr. Kandari, in junior high school, because classes wouldn't allow for both to happen at the same time and take computer. That's kind of the issue we hear spoken about tonight, but I just had to say a few words on it. Thank you, Mr. Ginsky.
Any other old business?
Real quickly, it's apparent that Mr. Kandari has figured something out, and it's a point well taken. I would love to see that transcend to our English, our math, and so forth. And again, with our work that we're doing with the Curriculum Development Committee, it's a great opportunity to have this model, if you will, for lessons learned, and how do we apply that to these adjacent subjects, and to be that model school district for our science, our math, and our English. So that's something that I would love to see us do. Okay, thank you.
That's a good point. Any new business? At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Where is it? Oh, I'm sorry.
We're going into close.
No, we don't need an executive session. Do we need? Okay. Whereas the Board of Education will be discussing matters exempt from public discussion pursuant to NJSA 10.4.12. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Education recess to close executive session at this time to discuss student matters. Being further resolved that the results of this discussion will be made public by inclusion on the agenda of a subsequent meeting of the Board of Education, or when the reasons for discussing such matters in closed session no longer exist.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.